Happy Halloween, everybody. I hope you are having a great day or that you end up having a great day. And I'm hoping I get this review up as the day is at least coming to a close with Halloween 2023, as I meant to get this up a little bit sooner. But I figured, what a better way to cap off the Halloween season than with Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers. Directed by Dominique Othenin-Girard, who wrote this film alongside Shem Bitterman, Deborah Hill, and Michael Jacobs. This film once again stars people like Pleasence and Danielle Harris, as well as Ellie Cornell, and also stars people like Wendy Foxworth, Jeffrey Landman, and more. And for any of you who are wondering, hey Anthony, you said at the very start of the month that you were going to try to cover all of the Halloween films you have yet to cover here on the channel throughout the course of October. What's happening with those other reviews? Well, so I didn't get around to the rest of them. There are still, I believe, 2 more that I have not covered here on the channel, which are H2O and Resurrection. And so I do plan on still sprinkling those out over the course of the beginning part of November. Probably just without the Halloween intro, to be completely and utterly honest. We'll go back to my normal intro and put away that Halloween intro until next Halloween. But I do still intend on covering the rest of the films that I wasn't able to pack into this month, but I wanted to end this month with one of these reviews. And today we're talking about the 5th installment into the Halloween franchise, The Revenge of Michael Myers, that once again hones in on the young girl Jamie, who we learned in the last film is the niece of Michael Myers, who was his target throughout the course of that film. So one thing I should say right out of the gate before I get too far as well is my buddy Mike of Did You See That called me out in the comments last time for spoiling the last movie that is, you know, multiple decades old. But, you know, I guess I'll just throw out a quick warning that I am going to be speaking fairly openly about this film. I won't be spoiling each and every little nook and cranny of the movie, but I will be speaking about it as if you've at least seen the other films, or at least just telling you what ended up happening in the other films that led up to the things that we're following here. And Halloween 5 Revenge of Michael Myers is not a great movie. I'll start that off by saying that this is one that I am wildly nostalgic for. This is easily one of those films that my brain ports back to the most when I think of sitting around and watching the various Monster Fest and Horror Fests that were on TV when I was a kid around the season of Halloween. Without a doubt, Halloween 5 Revenge of Michael Myers has some of the most iconic imagery for me when I think back on my childhood in terms of those big moments of sitting around the TV with my family watching Halloween films. And so without a doubt, that's one of the things that kind of has that nostalgic attachment for me when it comes to this film. But watching it today in 2023, after probably like a little bit over a decade since the last time I saw this movie, I can easily say that it does not hold up in a lot of ways, but it's still entertaining. And that's one thing I really enjoy about the Halloween franchise, is even the worst ones in this franchise are still at least laughably entertaining for me, especially these older films. And with this film, we're taking a trip back to 1989, right before we get into the 90s, which was a whole different boom of horror slasher films that were very different. Of course, around this time, things like Child's Play were starting to come into the forefront. We're just a few years away now at this point from Scream coming into the forefront and the return of Freddy Krueger with things like New Nightmare. So horror was changing, slasher movies were changing into a new direction. And so once again, we're reintroduced to the young girl Jamie, played by Danielle Harris, who, funny enough, just a couple of days ago, I actually went to go to Spooky Empire here in Central Florida, which is a horror convention that just went on in Orlando, Florida. I got to go for one night just to go and hang out. I got to walk around the area with all the various actors and directors and writers signing things for people, and there was tons of names there, including Danielle Harris. So it was nice to see her in the flesh. I was standing maybe like 6 or 7 feet away. It was an open area. They weren't behind any tents or any drapes or anything like that. So I got to see these actors right there in the flesh. I got to see Robert Englund. I got to see Alex Vincent. I got to see the cast of Charmed. I got to see Kiefer Sutherland, Jason Patric, and the list goes on and on and on. So let's talk a little bit more now, a few minutes into this review for this movie. We hone in and we start the movie with the end of the last film, where we see that Michael Myers has supposedly been killed, but of course he escapes. He ends up getting out of that situation alive. The police think that he's been destroyed, but they have no idea where he is. They can't find his body, and he's made it out. And one of the things that's hilarious right out of the gate with this one is that in other installments of Halloween, more often than not, Michael Myers ends up kind of losing touch with his mask and finds a new mask of the same kind, which can kind of explain why his mask looks different in the next film sometimes. And if you saw my review for the last one, you know that I thought that the mask from the fourth film is pretty hilariously bad and cheesy at times, and it does not in any way, shape, or form evoke that same creep factor that the original two movies mask does. And so here we are jumping into a movie that takes place directly after the events of the last one, showing us Michael Myers escaping his death from the last film, only to instantly already be wearing a completely different mask. This is one of the funniest things about this franchise, how inconsistent Michael Myers' mask, something that you would think would be ridiculously simplistic, how funny it is that they cannot keep that consistent across these movies. It is one of my favorite things about these movies. So yeah, you have Michael Myers with this really different oversized mask that oftentimes isn't tucked into his shirt, so it's just kind of flapping out the edges. It looks hilarious. It looks entirely different from the last film, and as far as continuity, I just felt like it was something I had to mention. Not too long into the film, though, we're reintroduced to Jamie, played by Danielle Harris, as we are getting a dream sequence of the end of the last film, and we learn that the finale of that last film, where you're believing that she killed somebody, actually just turned out to be a dream, and she's actually now in a psych ward after the events of the last film. And for some reason that they don't necessarily fully explain, other than just, I guess, alluding to the fact that the trauma of the fourth film kind of put her in this state, Jamie is now no longer able to speak. She is a mute, and so she's using sign language, and anytime she screams, it's literally just her blowing out air, essentially. And it kind of makes for a funny introduction to this character once again, because if you just are binging through the movies, you really don't understand in any way, shape, or form why suddenly Jamie is incapable of speaking. Eventually, she is able to speak in the film again, as it's essentially scared out of her. I'm not sure that necessarily makes sense, to be completely and utterly honest, but for a big chunk of the film, Jamie is incapable of speaking, oftentimes slurring her words. And again, the film gives little to no explanation as to why she goes from fully being able to speak totally fine in the fourth film to coming into the fifth film and not being able to speak at all. Of course, over the course of the film, Michael Myers is in the mix, killing some people, and one of the most notable ones pretty early on is the character of Rachel, who is the stepsister to Jamie, who was with her throughout the entirety of the last film. So you would think that she was going to be a big part of this film, but she's killed pretty early on. Of course, once again played by Ellie Cornell. And so now the main older individual who is helping Jamie throughout the course of this movie is a woman named Tina, played by Wendy Foxworth, who is just essentially fits that same role of Rachel in the previous film. And so yeah, over the course of the film, Tina is trying to get to Jamie, Jamie's trying to get to Tina, they're trying to stay together and be safe, and you have a bunch of characters that get killed in the mix. Now, one character that's in the mix that I think at this point you're almost questioning why he's consistently in the mix is Dr. Loomis, once again played by Donald Pleasence. And Donald Pleasence as Dr. Loomis is a character that goes from being the absolutely needed expert in the first couple of films to, at this point in the franchise, becoming the old man that you're just like, who keeps letting this guy in? Why is he involved in anything that's going on? As he's just incredibly abrasive. He's, dealing with these children who are in this mental facility who are obviously traumatized from past events. And he's like shaking Jamie. He's like, you need to tell me where Michael is now. And it's just like, dude, you are like, at this point, you're off the rails. You've lost it. You should be stripped of your doctor title. There should not be letting you in to an asylum or some sort of medical facility for children in any way, shape, or form. And at this point, the fact that the police are listening to him and his wild rants, and that he's getting like so handsy with the kids as he gets frustrated about where Michael Myers is kind of hilarious, but also like, who let this guy in? He's just like consistently running around, the evil. He made me keep thinking about Mermaid Man from SpongeBob. I don't know if anybody has ever seen SpongeBob that's watching this video right now, and I'm sure plenty of you have. But yeah, I don't know. I'm wondering now watching these movies if Mermaid Man was based on, obviously he's based on Aquaman, but I wonder if he was also based on Dr. Loomis in terms of consistently just being like, we have to take out the evil. Anyway, that's enough on Donald Pleasence. He's in the mix, you know. At a certain point, he thinks he can talk Michael Myers out of his insanity later on in the film and ends up getting his shit rocked, essentially. And, this movie just mainly focuses on Jamie trying to get away from Michael Myers. And something else I have to mention here that is kind of hilarious is there's this little kid over the course of the film that is running around with Jamie that's part of this, medical facility that they're a part of. And this kid's name is Billy, played by Jeffrey Landman. And whether it be his creepy smile, his horrible acting, or the just lines of dialogue he's given, there are so many moments in this film that made my fiance and I laugh so fucking loud at how ridiculous this kid's line deliveries were, as well as the weirdly creepy smiles that he would consistently be giving Jamie over the course of the film. Overall, Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers is another Michael Myers movie. There isn't really much to say when it comes down to cinematography or even practical effects, as most of the kills are done off camera or kind of alluded to, and the ones that are done on camera are fine. They fit the mold of the slasher genre. But at this point, in 1989, when we had already received tons and tons and tons of Freddy Krueger and Jason films that had pushed the limits and given us some pretty gory kills and some memorable kills at that, there's really nothing about Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers, that stands out amidst its own franchise, the Halloween franchise, as well as the other slashers that it was competing with at the time. Overall, the film is an enjoyable, silly, dumb, fun time if you're a fan of older slasher films, as I am. And like I mentioned, there's a lot of nostalgia that I do have for this film. I would say if I had to give out one big standout moment in terms of the practical effects in this film, it would be when Michael Myers takes out that couple that's about to get freaky in the barn. There's definitely some pretty good practical effect work there, with a pitchfork through the chest and plenty of blood to follow that. But other than that, this is a pretty straightforward, simplistic movie within the franchise that has a lot of lacking character logic, as well as some pretty bad dialogue and bad performances, some unexplained things in terms of things like Jamie not being able to speak in this film, and an old man that just should not be involved in this case anymore in a Dr. Loomis. So that's going to be my thoughts on Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers. I hope you guys enjoyed my final video here for Halloween 2023. I hope you guys enjoyed Halloween. I'm sure a lot of you guys will end up watching this video after Halloween. So if you did, I hope you enjoyed your time. I hope you were all safe. I hope you guys had a good fun time with your friends and your family. And like I said, I'm going to be rolling out the other Halloween reviews I still haven't covered here in this month over the course of the next couple of weeks. And I'll see you beautiful people in the next one. Bye-bye.